The internal report blamed me for the $4.5 million partnership failure. The partner's CEO sent our board a letter stating that I had repeatedly flagged the issues that led to the collapse and that my supervisor had refused to act on my warnings. I'd been contracted as an integration specialist for a consulting firm in Miami for 14 months. I coordinated technology implementations for joint client projects. I identified compatibility issues. I documented risks and escalated concerns to project leadership. The partnership with the enterprise software provider had launched in January. By June, it had collapsed completely. Our firm had to refund $4.5 million to 3 clients. The internal post-mortem report was dated July 15th. Section 3. Integration specialist failed to identify critical compatibility issues during planning phase. Inadequate risk assessment led to project failures and client refunds. The partner CEO's letter to our board was dated July 22nd. It stated, "Your integration specialist, Isabel Martinez, identified all critical compatibility issues in February and March. She escalated these concerns to your project director multiple times. Your firm's decision not to address these issues directly caused the implementation failures." The internal report blamed me for missing problems I'd actually documented and reported. The partner's CEO had told our board exactly the opposite. My name is Isabel. I assess technical compatibility for enterprise software implementations. I documented integration requirements. I flagged risks that could cause project failures. I'd been doing this work for 8 years across 27 implementations. I'd never had a project failure before. This one failed because my supervisor ignored every warning I'd documented. I opened my project documentation file and started organizing the timeline. I had documented every compatibility issue I'd identified. 17 separate technical concerns. Each one included the specific incompatibility, the affected systems, and the recommended resolution. February 8th. Database synchronization protocol mismatch. Our client systems used real-time sync. Partner platform required batch processing. Recommendation: implement middleware layer or revise data flow architecture. February 22nd. Authentication framework incompatibility. Client security systems used OAuth 2.0. Partner platform required SAML. Recommendation: build authentication bridge or negotiate protocol standardization. March 5th. API versioning conflict. Client applications called v3 endpoints. Partner platform had deprecated v3 and required v4. Recommendation: update client integrations or request partner v3 support extension. I documented 17 issues like this, each one sent to my supervisor, each one flagged as blocking risk for implementation. My supervisor's responses had been consistent. February 8th response: partner has confirmed compatibility. Proceed with implementation timeline. February 22nd response: authentication differences can be resolved during integration phase. March 5th response: API versioning is a minor technical detail. Development team will handle it. I'd escalated 3 times that these weren't minor details. They were fundamental incompatibilities that would prevent the systems from working together. Each escalation had been dismissed. The implementations launched in April. All 3 clients. All 3 failed within 2 weeks. Database sync failures caused data corruption. Authentication incompatibilities prevented user access. API version conflicts crashed client applications. We had to roll back all 3 implementations. Full refunds. $4.5 million. The July 15th internal report blamed my inadequate risk assessment. The July 22nd letter from the partner CEO told our board that I'd identified everything and been ignored. I organised all my documentation chronologically. Every risk I'd identified, every escalation I'd sent, every dismissive response from my supervisor. Then I requested a meeting with HR to discuss the internal report. HR scheduled the meeting for July 28th. The HR director and me. No one else invited. I brought copies of all my documentation. The HR director opened the conversation. You requested this meeting regarding the partnership post-mortem report? Yes. The report states that I failed to identify critical compatibility issues. I'd like to provide documentation showing I identified and escalated all 17 issues that caused the implementation failures. I provided the documentation package, every risk assessment, every escalation email, every dismissive response. The HR director reviewed it for 20 minutes without speaking. You documented these issues in February and March. Yes, all 17 blocking risks were identified before implementation began.
And your supervisor's responses indicate he decided to proceed despite your warnings? Correct. He characterized them as minor technical details that could be resolved during integration.
But they weren't minor. No. They were fundamental incompatibilities. The implementations failed exactly as my risk assessments predicted they would. The HR director made notes. The internal report attributes the failures to inadequate risk assessment on your part. The risk assessments were comprehensive and accurate. The failures resulted from the decision to ignore those assessments. Do you have the partner CEO's letter that was sent to the board? No. I only know about it because my supervisor mentioned it in a project team meeting. The HR director paused. I'll need to review this with senior leadership. Can you provide me with copies of all this documentation? I provided complete copies and returned to my work. I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. On August 12th, I received a termination notice. Effective August 31st. Reason? Project performance issues and contractual restructuring. The notice offered 2 weeks of severance per standard contractor terms. I reviewed my contract. Section 6. In the event of termination without cause related to contractor's performance, contractor is entitled to severance equivalent to the remainder of the current contract term or 3 months, whichever is greater. My contract ran through December 31st. That meant 4 months of remaining term. My severance should be 4 months, not 2 weeks. I also noted that the termination cited performance issues, but my documentation showed my performance had been accurate and professional throughout. I contacted an employment attorney. The attorney reviewed my contract and documentation. They're terminating you for accurately identifying risks that your supervisor ignored, she said. That's retaliation for doing your job correctly. What are my options? File a complaint with HR, citing the retaliation and contract violation. If they don't correct it, we have grounds for wrongful termination. Even though I'm a contractor? Your contract has specific performance and severance provisions. They're violating both. I filed a formal complaint with HR on August 14th. I outlined the retaliation pattern, the internal report falsely blaming me, my documentation proving I'd identified all risks, the termination 2 weeks after I'd provided that documentation to HR. I also cited Section 6 of my contract, and requested the 4 months of severance I was owed. HR acknowledged receipt but provided no substantive response. On August 20th, the board secretary sent me an unexpected email. Subject line: Board review request. The board is conducting a review of the partnership failure. We'd like to request your participation in an interview on August 25th. Please confirm your availability. I confirmed availability and prepared my complete documentation. The August 25th interview was conducted via video conference. 3 board members, the CEO, and me. The board chair opened the conversation. We've received conflicting information about the partnership implementation. The internal report indicates inadequate risk assessment. The partner CEO's letter indicates comprehensive risk identification that was not acted upon. We'd like your perspective. I provided a factual summary. The 17 compatibility issues I'd identified. The timeline of my escalations. My supervisor's responses dismissing each concern. The implementation failures that matched my risk predictions exactly. Do you have documentation of these escalations? Yes. Complete email threads, risk assessment reports, and implementation failure logs. Can you provide those to us? I shared my entire documentation package during the meeting. The board members reviewed it in real time. One board member spoke. These risk assessments are detailed and specific. They accurately predicted every failure that occurred. Yes, the compatibility issues were identifiable during the planning phase. That's why I flagged them before implementation. Another board member addressed the CEO. Why wasn't this documentation included in the internal post-mortem report? The CEO looked uncomfortable. The post-mortem was prepared by the project director based on his assessment of your occurred. His assessment blamed Isabel for failures she'd explicitly warned about? That was his conclusion at the time. The board chair made notes. We'd like to conduct a more comprehensive review. Isabel, we more from words at additional questions. Please keep your documentation available. The interview ended. I cited my notes and continued preparing for my August 31st contract end date.
3 days later, on August 28th, the board secretary sent another email. The board has completed its review of the partnership implementation. Your contract termination has been suspended pending resolution of factual discrepancies in the internal report. Please continue your current work assignments. I noted the suspension and continued working. 2 weeks later, on September 12th, the CEO sent a company-wide email. The project director who'd supervised the partnership implementation was no longer with the firm. No details provided. Effective immediately. I saved the announcement and maintained my regular schedule. On September 15th, I received a meeting invitation from the board chair, just the 2 of us, scheduled for September 18th. The September 18th meeting was direct. The board has reviewed the partnership implementation thoroughly, the board chair said. Your risk assessments were accurate and professional. The decision to ignore those assessments was made by your supervisor without board knowledge. I nodded. We're revising the internal report to accurately reflect what occurred. We're also addressing your contract situation.
My termination was suspended, but no new terms were provided.
We'd like to extend your contract through the original December 31st end date with an additional 3-month extension option.
And the termination notice that cited performance issues?
That will be formally withdrawn. Your performance met all contractual obligations.
What about the severance dispute?
If you choose not to extend beyond December 31st, you'll receive the full 4-month severance specified in Section 6 of your contract.
I accepted the contract extension through December 31st. The revised internal report was distributed on September 25th. It stated that the integration specialist had identified all critical risks during the planning phase, and that the decision to proceed despite those warnings had been made by project leadership. The report no longer blamed me for anything. I worked through December, completing my remaining assignments. I transitioned my project documentation to the permanent staff. I prepared comprehensive handover materials. My contract ended on schedule on December 31st. I received the 4-month severance payments specified in my contract. By mid-January, I had 3 new contract opportunities. I accepted a position with a larger consulting firm, better terms, direct reporting to senior partners, clear escalation protocols. The new firm valued risk assessment. When I identified compatibility issues, they were documented, reviewed, and addressed before implementations began. 6 months after leaving my previous firm, I was managing integration projects for enterprise clients with $10+ million budgets. None of them failed. A year after the partnership collapse, I was promoted to Senior Integration Architect. I designed technical compatibility frameworks for the firm's largest implementations. 2 years later, I was leading a team of 12 integration specialists. We'd completed 37 enterprise implementations with a 100% success rate. 3 years after the July 15th internal report that had blamed me for partnership failures, I still had all the documentation. The 17 risk assessments I'd submitted, the dismissive responses from my supervisor, the implementation failure logs that matched my predictions, the partner CEO's letter to the board, the revised internal report correcting the record. Those documents had shown what happened when someone accurately identified risks and someone else decided to ignore them. The board had reviewed the evidence and reached their own conclusions. The internal report had been corrected. The supervisor who'd ignored the warnings was gone. My contract had been honoured. Everything after that had been about working with organisations that understood the difference between identifying problems and causing them. My supervisor had thought he could proceed with implementations despite fundamental incompatibilities and then blame the integration specialist when they failed. The partner CEO's letter had made that impossible because it had told the board exactly what I'd documented, that I'd identified every issue that caused the failures and that my warnings had been ignored. The board had asked to see my documentation, and once they had, the truth about what had happened was clear enough that no amount of blame shifting could override it. That hadn't prevented the failures or recovered the $4.5 million in refunds, but it had established for the record that accurately predicting failures wasn't the same as causing them. and documentation showing you'd warned about something before it happened was worth more than any after-the-fact report claiming you should have done more.